there. Most of what we talked about so far is in regards to squat mobility. What about like other types of mobility? Like what about like shoulder mobility for overhead pressing, or like elbow mobility for bench pressing? That one's probably not as common, but the other major one that a lot of people talk about is like shoulder mobility specifically for overhead exercises. Give me a bit of an overview on where you're at on that.
Yeah, silly. Again, I mean, I think if somebody's not coming off an injury, do we really think we need mobility exercises to go like that? It really doesn't take much, especially as long as you know what the technique should be. So, you're starting with the bar in your hands, you're pressing it over your head, trying to keep it close to your face and to your shoulder, and shrugging your shoulders at the top of the rep. You really don't need to be that supple or that mobile to do it. And if somebody doesn't, so like we do have people who are, like I said, 50s, 60s, 70s who come in and they can't quite get the bar back over their shoulder where it needs to be finished when they first start pressing. But we don't do any mobility drills. We don't freak out. They just keep pressing, and a few weeks and a few months later, they can get the bar exactly where they need it to be, and they're able to get their press up the whole time. They're able to practice the whole time. So it's, again, non-specific mobility drill. Like maybe you want to call a mobility drill, maybe you want to call the exercise itself a mobility drill for the press. The press works great for mobility in the press. But yeah.
I was just thinking, like, what if you put together like a program and sold it as like a mobility program, but like literally on the program, it was just like the mobility for overhead press is literally overhead press. The mobility for squats is literally squats, but it's just like kind of like breaking it down. That would be like an amazing idea. Like, would people feel swindled, or would they feel like their eyes were opened, like when they bought it?
Oh, very swindled, I'm sure.
Probably.
Yeah, I like that.
But what about like, so one of the tricks that I do for that is that if they're like, okay, I like my shoulder mobility overhead press, I'm like, okay, put one arm over your head. Okay, now put the other arm over your head. Can you do that? Cool. Yeah. You can overhead press. Now we just have to put a bar in your hands.
It's really not that crazy.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Now, what about properly warming up? Like properly warming up before you train, because that's kind of a component of mobility as well. Sure. What do you do for a proper warm up for an exercise?
Yeah, so people will say, like, if I don't foam roll during my warm-ups, I'm not going to feel as good in my bottom position when I squat. But what I would, propose to you is, or, take this for bench or press or whatever, but is just to warm up with the movement itself. Foam rolling and stretching, might get you warm if it's tough enough. But you can just get warm by doing the exercise itself. Do maybe a couple extra sets then of warm-ups with the empty bar, something than you typically would. But when it comes to warming up, you want to subjectively feel warm. Maybe you break a sweat, work up gradually to your work sets. But in terms of a non-specific warm up, maybe if you live in somewhere extra cold or it's winter, you want to go on the bike for 5 or 10 minutes. But we have people literally just walk in the gym and start squatting.
What do you think about have you ever heard of the Agile 8 and the Limber 11?
Never.
You've never heard of those?
Gosh, what the heck? Is that a list of exercises you run through before a workout?
Oh yeah, exactly.
I've probably done stuff like that. Yeah, in my athlete next days. Yeah.
Although, what's funny about that is that type of stuff, I'm actually like more. I would say that's a better option than doing like foam rolling and knee drills, because it's like the stuff on that stuff is mostly like active stuff. Like you're doing like V-sits, you're doing like V-sits, or you're doing like kickbacks or something. So it's something where it's like, at least you're like, exactly. At least you're moving. You're not just like like laying. Although actually there is, now that I think about it, there is some foam rolling on those. So fuck them.
Yeah.